Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my Mortar Cannon Tactician. Mortar Cannon is a new skill added this patch, which basically takes one of your grenade skills and puts them on a totem. That totem will then shoot the grenade skill repeatedly while you can, for example, do other stuff like place your own grenades or, like in this build, explode the grenades. We're also using some powerful uniques like the Constricting Command or the Valakos Vice Gloves. This build was an absolute banger and, in my opinion, is one of the better entries into the league. It performs extremely well on very low currency investment. Not everything is without downsides though, and we're gonna talk about that. Basically, everything I learned in the first week, I'll kind of compile. People who have followed the build know that I have been making constant updates, but this is basically everything all in one. There will also be a written max roll guide, and once that is out, I will also link it down in the description as well as the pinned comment. Our main skill is Mortar Cannon. This is a meta skill, which just means that it needs something to be supported to. It does something with a skill. It changes it. In this case, Explosive Grenade. Usually, if I press right click, it would just throw down a grenade. But in this case, I put down a Ballista, which then throws that grenade, which is the Mortar Cannon. Now, looking at the skill, one thing you always have to do is check what's going on here. Supported grenade skills have 100% cooldown recovery rate. That means you're gonna throw a lot more grenades than, for example, if you would do it yourself. However, it has two big downsides. The first one is less attack speed, and the second one, less damage. Less damage is there because, well, I can, for example, throw down multiple ballistas. So if it didn't have any less multiplier, then it would just be broken beyond belief. And supported skills have less attack speed, which doesn't really matter all that much because your Mortar Cannon still has a cooldown. It has charges at the start, just like the grenades, and after that, it adheres to the cooldown. So the less attack speed is just a little bit less burst. It doesn't really mean less sustained damage. Now, while this 50% less damage seems like a downside, ballistas can also scale. You can have +1 maximum ballista. That's 2. Then I get another one from my weapon, 3. And another one, the +2 limit also works. So that is a total of 4 ballistas. The totems also do the targeting for you. Now, what grenade do you pick? Explosive Grenade is, in my opinion, the best one. There are cluster grenades, there are gas grenade versions out there. I can tell you personally, if you look at this damage number, 1,372%, you just cannot beat it. And while, yes, cluster grenades has a tiny bit better clear and is definitely not as spammy, the single target is so far off that I just do not think it's worth it. But I implore you to try out different grenades. Important to know though, Mortar Cannon and Explosive Grenade are one skill, which means that this scales with both grenade nodes on the tree and everywhere, as well as ballista nodes. They are both at the same time, which gives you a ton of flexibility when it comes to the mercenary area and damage scaling. As well as that, totems scale off of your damage. Not minions, they are not anything like that. They scale off of your damage. So if something says increased damage with two-handers, then that works. It is an extension of you. And it is also considered an ally. The second skill we're casting ourselves is Explosive Shot, which can be a great damage dealer, but in this build, it takes a backseat because it is just our detonator for grenades. So our playstyle would look something like this. Totems, you don't have to stand still to place. You kind of just walk around, place them down, and then here or there, you're going to fire an Explosive Shot, which is going to explode the grenades that these fellas are throwing at enemies. Important to know is don't spam this button. You probably could, right? Like spam Explosive Shot, but it's actually bad because the grenades have a trajectory time. So for example, if the enemy is over there, if you just explode constantly, all of them will kind of just maybe get the AoE on the enemy, but a lot of the time you will see that you'll actually do a lot less damage. There's definitely some weird stuff going on bosses as well. You just don't spam it. Now, since Explosive Shot is only there to explode our grenades, we can make it as comfortable as possible. We don't need to put damage supports in there, and we can use some of the new goodies. For example, Nova Projectiles, which is usually very costly, right? Like you can have this effect right here. Without it, it's just a simple shot. And in the first 2 days, I did this on every single grenade, which is kind of annoying because your ballistas are firing all over the place. So I would have to shoot I would have to shoot here, I would have to shoot there, I would have to shoot there, right? I would have to aim and whatnot. But no, I do not want to do that. And so, yeah, with the Nova Projectiles, that is a lot more comfy. And since we don't care about the 40% less damage, great. Same thing goes for Streamlined Rounds. This gives us more attack speed, but once again, less damage. Less reload speed, which doesn't matter because of the next support, and it loads 5 additional bolts. So basically, you're golden. Now, you will see that whenever I dodge roll, I actually get 3 ammunition back, and that is because of Ratha's Assault. This one is an acquired taste. There was a reload bug at the start, and it has now been fixed. I'm still having jamming issues here or there, so I can straight up tell you, try this out. If you don't like it, sell it again. This one is very, very, very important. It loads 3 additional bolts, so you can see 9 here. Otherwise, it would only be 6. And yeah, whenever I dodge roll, I instantly reroll them. I never need to like do anything. I never need to reload, and that's just how it is. If you can't get into that playstyle, try something else, but I would highly recommend it to anybody. A question you might have is, why don't I just use short fuse and don't do anything, right? I just place ballistas and walk, have a comfy 1-1 build. Well, the problem is, short fuse comes with 30% less damage, which is crazy. And on top of that, you also lose a support gem. That would mean, in my situation, I would have to cut elemental armaments, which is 25% more damage. So if we do that math, we would be ending up at like half the damage. And it's not as fast as explosive, because then they still have to land and there's still a little bit of detonation time. As well as that, exploding them instant makes us use cluster bombs with no downside. We can use stuff that has increased detonation time as a downside, because it doesn't matter. The detonation time is going to get cut short by our explosive shot. Let's talk about unique items that are being used in this build next. Constricting Command is the most expensive item in here, besides your crossbow, obviously. But it says in the last line, requires 5 fewer enemies to be surrounded. Surrounded is an effect that turns on when there's a lot of guys around you, right? So 5 enemies within 3 meters of you. However, with this helmet, you can roll up to 5 fewer enemies required to be surrounded. So if you have the perfect hit, you basically have all the buffs that you get from surrounded conditions anywhere, all the time, even if there's 0 enemies around you, even if you're in your hideout. But what can you do with this helmet? Well, there's the passive tree and there is a support gem that you can use with it. Basically, this is a very hard to fulfill conditional, so the nodes on the tree reflect that. If you, for example, I'm just going to put this out real quickly. If you, for example, look at this node, 25% increased attack damage while surrounded. That would be half or less than half normally, right? Like an attack damage node would be like 10 to 12%. Same thing here, you can pick up all of these nodes, but then the notables. Up here, you also have evasion, armor, right? Like all of these values are way higher than normal. But you also have stuff like this, 10% movement speed for a point, just straight up. 0.5 meter dodge roll distance. You will find this like basically nowhere. It is extremely, extremely premium. But yeah, it goes harder and harder. 100% increased damage. The reduced accuracy doesn't really matter. Increased block chance, deflection rating, ailment and stun threshold. There is another cluster over here. 2.5 maximum region, which is like 5 times the normal amount you get from a notable, and 20% attack speed. And if you look at these small nodes, they're just completely bonkers. And then down here, you will also get 20 and 25% increased damage. So it's actually a lot more boring of an item that you might think. It's basically just a stat stick that has ridiculous amounts of offensive and defensive power. I played this build without it. It's totally fine. It's way stronger with, so you can start without it and farm up for it. The second reason to go surrounded is Defy 2. It makes it so insufficient mana doesn't prevent the use of supported skills while surrounded, which means that you will go to 0 mana, but you can still cast your skills if they're supported with this. This unfortunately doesn't work for Mortar Cannon, but you can try it out on other things in this setup if you want to. And yeah, that's round about it. The second unique item in here is Valako's Vice, which is very cheap. These gloves convert 100% of fire damage to lightning damage. And since we're using explosive grenade, that is very strong because fire unfortunately has a ignite, which is severely undertuned at the moment, whereas lightning has shock, which makes it so enemies take increased damage from all sources. These gloves also just have good stats. That is a lot of strength, a lot of dex, a lot of res, a lot of attack speed. And you can buy a 2-socket one for pretty cheap, so you can get a little bit of extra chaos res. I almost forgot about Idol of Uldern. This one gives you +1 totem. I already mentioned it. I want to mention this one in particular because once you have your 3rd totem on your ballista, you can think about replacing this one. You will see that going from 3 to 4 ballistas is technically 33% more damage, but it is also very mana hungry because now you have to place down 4 instead of 3. So if I had played this for another week or so, I would have definitely looked into replacing this amulet for something like, I don't know, a rare amulet with defensive stats and then +3 to projectile skills. But do not cut it until you get your +1 on the crossbow, because then you go from 3 to 2, and that is too little. Now, I quickly chunked in a little bit of a map here, this one to make it a little bit more dangerous, because people always say evasion is so rough or whatever. yeah, and just in general, I don't know, a little bit of a stacked map, but it does have a map boss, so we're going to do this real quickly, and I want to show you how this build plays. So you throw down your ballistas, and I'm just basically pressing my explosive shots sometimes. And yeah, that's kind of the gameplay, and sometimes, yeah, obviously you have to press your mana flask as well. So I get the glacial rune, I get this. I'll not loot too much, okay? I don't have that much currency, but I'll refrain just for you. All right, so we put down the stuff, obviously hunt the rares, but this is kind of how it looks like. And here or there, you will have to dodge roll. Depending on how spammy you are with your explosive shot, you will have to dodge more or less. And interestingly enough, it still plops down our Mirage Archer. As you can see right here, we just had a Mirage Archer and it just went on cooldown. And the reason that works is pretty simple. It is that, well, I have a weapon swap set up, and I'll show you all about it once we get to it. But yeah, so we put it down, do this, and that is kind of the playstyle. Let's quickly clear this Abyss to show you a little bit more. I don't really use my Voltaic Grenade whatsoever, but if you want to, you definitely can. I'll put this down. And yeah, this is kind of how it looks like. I will quickly clear the rest of the map. As you can see, it is very spammy. I wish I had more to tell you about this. It is a very, very chill playstyle. I guess, I mean, we'll talk about defenses in a bit, but there's evasion, there's armor. Both are good. It depends on your playstyle, but yeah. All right, we're at the boss now. All I'm going to do is I'm going to place my Mirage Archer by dodge rolling right after I put down my totems. Then I'll let my totems have a little bit of extra time so they can throw down the grenades, and then I will start pressing explosive shot a few times. Also depends on what the enemy does. But since you will have seen that during mapping, enemies weren't really moving that much. Nothing really touched me. Since we're pinning constantly, and pinning on a Tactician also means pinned enemies cannot perform actions. Usually they just stand still, but ranged mobs can still hit you. But in this case, it's literally like freeze. So we're going to see how that looks in a second. I've kind of forgot this one. So I put down the totems, then I roll, and you can see down here. So yeah, the boss now stands still. I have to place down some new ballistas, and there it goes, right? This is currently, I didn't notice how much HP it has, but this is currently with full boss points, 10 out of 10. Just so you know, this is with Rakiata's Flow, which is quite a bit of extra damage against bosses that have resistances. So a lot of things happened there. Let's go over gems so you kind of understand what's going on. The first thing I always get asked for is, why do I have random supports in here? Well, I'm never using crossbow shot. The reason is only this passive point right here that just got introduced. If you have at least 10 red, 10 green supports, you will get increased movement, increased life. I should also get the mana, but I'm a little bit lazy, so it is what it is. But yeah, you can do whatever you want. You could get a little bit of extra int and fill that up to 10 as well. Make sure that this also remains on weapon swap, because if I, for example, weapon swap, you will see that it actually changes, or in some instances it does, right? Okay, so Mortar Cannon is supported by your main skill, and then Urgent Totems is the most important support. 100% totem placement speed. For some reason, ZiggyD decided to give the new ballista clusters no placement speed whatsoever. They're all over there for the warriors, which are usually the slow class. Don't ask me. The difference is crazy. So just to give you this real quick, it does also gives you 20% increased attack speed, which is not bad. But just to show you how it looks like without, I have a little bit of placement speed, but like this is how it looks like. This is how long it takes. Boom. And with it, zappy. Super, super zappy. You will notice it immediately when you play. I don't have to explain it to you. Okay. Then I have Elemental Armaments, 25% more damage. Payload, this is an interesting one. There are boss fights where you should not use this and should put in something like Lightning Infusion. Or I think it's called Lightning Affinity or whatever it's called now. So it gives you 70% reduced cooldown recovery rate. And then grenades have 50% chance to activate a second time for full damage, right? So you might think, oh, but reduced CDR. Mortar Cannon intrinsically have already a lot of increased CDR, which goes against it. This does not say less CDR, right? So that's the first point. But the second point is your totems still have uses. In total, they have 4 uses, so they can just throw grenades out with no consideration for cooldown, only after that the cooldown kicks in. So the TLDR is if you're in long boss fights where you think you won't have to place the totems again, you can also replace this. But in my opinion, you might as well just replace the totems again, because then they come with new charges and you can make use of this 50% more damage. Not really 50, right? Because you already have 15 and it's additive with that, but you get the gist. It's like 43% more damage or something. And for the last one, if you have the money, buy yourself a Rakyata's Flow. This one is interesting because it doesn't really do anything in a lot of situations. In Puri 2, a lot less enemies actually do have resistances, and you'll have to check on enemies under it if they actually do or have kind of a knowledge about it. But if you do, this can more than double your damage because it treats enemy LE resistances as inverted. So for example, instead of them having 50 res, they will have minus 50. But what you can also do is just use Lightning Attunement, which is gonna come out to around about 20% more damage. Now, inverted does not work with damage penetration, but I still take it because in some situations I will not have Rakyatas in, but there's still like a very tanky rare that does have res, an outlier. So yeah, the pathing here is fine, right? It also gives you a little bit extra chance to shock. It's like 3 points versus, I don't know, I guess you would get like a little bit of strength, but that's about it. Explosive Shot, Rathas for your dodge roll, like I explained earlier, Streamlined Rounds, Nova Projectiles. Fork is just a little bit of extra clear. Once again, the less damage doesn't matter because we're only exploding with it. And then Magnified Area. If you feel like you need even more area, you can maybe path here and get Primed to Explode for the 40% area. Voltaic Grenade can electrocute. I throw this one here or there, especially in longer boss fights. When enemies get pinned repeatedly, it is actually nice to also have a source of electrocution in there. It doesn't really do that much damage, but it has a ton of electrocution. Build up. What it also does is, if I was higher level, or I had these notes before, but now I'm not anymore, 25% of physical as extra lightning against electrocuted enemies. So it's also a little bit of a bossing steroid. If you can get these into the build, even better. Then we have Mirage Archer, which I just showed you at the boss. It's basically this green dude who also throws grenades, kind of like another ballista at your command. And you will also put Explosive Grenade in it. You can play around with other stuff if you want to. You want Lightning Attunement, Elemental Armament, and Payload on it. And if you had a 6-link, I guess you could put in Multi-Shot. Wind Dancer is one of our auras, and we have a really nice combo here. You might have noticed when I was doing the gameplay that enemies jump at me, and then they get knocked back and just kind of stand still. That is because of Wind Dancer. This one gives us a ton of evasion, but it also gives us knockback plus blind plus pin. Quite strong. And I also threw in main because I had a 5-link. Overwhelming Presence is something I threw in just because I could. It means enemies' element thresholds are down, so you can electrocute easier, you can shock easier and stuff like that. And also they get stunned sometimes, although you won't really notice that because of the pin and whatnot. This one is definitely replaceable if you find something better. And then the Warbender actually didn't press this one on the boss, I just realized. But it basically, oh yeah, I didn't have it on keybind because I was doing stuff. But if you place it, you get more damage and extra attack speed, which is, yeah, really good. Put it down at bosses or whatever, maybe at your Abyss, and you kind of have to stand in it. Definitely put on Daresho's Passion, so it only costs 100 instead of 200 glory, and then throw a Clarity on wherever for the last bit of spirit. I'm also using a companion, which I subbed out for the showcase because it's just kind of annoying because it, has some ground effects or whatever, but this one has haste. I explain how you can farm this one in my update video 4, I want to say, so I'll link that down below in the description. But on this one, I just have Last Gasp and Loyalty. Now, a weapon swap is super important, so I'll explain it right here. Totems, if you don't know, snapshot on weapon swap. That means that you can put all your totem nodes, or as many as you possibly can, on one weapon, you plop them down, and then you can do whatever else you want. This is automatic, you don't have to do anything about it, so it's just like free power on a totem build. If you want to use 2 different weapons, you can, but otherwise you can also up here, lock your crossbow on both sides. You will know that it works if it has like a shadow on the side. You then go to Mortar Cannon, which is right here, and put it on weapon set 2 only and untick this, and then make sure you do the same for the grenade. You then go to Explosive Shot and make sure it's only ticked on 1, but not on 2. Go to Voltaic Grenade and put it on 2, and very importantly, go to Mirage Archer and put it only on 2, as well as that the Explosive Grenade from Mirage Archer only on 2. What this does is the following. Mirage Archer has a nasty downside that you cannot roll for 6 seconds, otherwise it goes on cooldown again. But if you only have it in one weapon swap, that means that you can still dodge roll around while you're in the other one. So what happens is you want to place down your totems and then roll. There it is, your Mirage, right? And now it goes on cooldown, but if I shoot my Explosive Shot, you can see the cooldown doesn't go up again. I can dodge roll however long I want. So if you get used to that, you will have way longer uptime. This is also important because you want to dodge roll a lot because of Rafa's Assault anyways. If you have done this correctly, you will have Spirit open on your first weapon set because your Mirage Archer is only on your second weapon set. So what you can do is you can put on Companion, Nestle Ant, put in the supports, and make it so it's only on weapon set 1. So for example, I do it right here, and boom, there you go. So my buddy is there always when I'm on weapon set 1, and then on weapon set 2, I have the option to make a Mirage Archer. Weapon set points are a little bit tricky, and they also depend on what else you have on your gear. So I'll show you mine, but you can definitely experiment with this, and there's probably zero chance that what I do is perfect, right? Like if you play this build for a long time, you'll probably find some tech here. On my main hand, which is Explosive Shot, I don't need any Ballista stuff. I still keep these points though, because the Ink AoE is global, and then also the increased armor and evasion I want wherever I am. Just do know that the +1 totem does snapshot if you took it on the other side. So yeah, you can do that as well. On this one, I just take more defenses, right? I plop down my totems, and then I go into Explosive Shot. I get all the evasion that I can, all the deflection that I can, and then I'm actually a lot tankier. That is about it. Just go full tank. Oh yeah, and the movement speed wheel over here with light on your feet, and all these small nodes also give move speed. On my weapon set 2, which is a lot more juicy, I have all these grenade nodes right here, and I have, once again, more grenade nodes and totem nodes. All of these snapshots, the placement speed right here, snapshots, and super important totem defenses. If you feel like it's necessary, you can even take this small point right here. Without this one, it will feel pretty bad. And make sure that your levels are always updated, because your mortar cannon's life and elemental resistances scales off of that. Then let's talk about Ascendancy. Solid Plan makes it so you can fit in a little bit more auras into your build. Since I didn't have that many active skill gems, I thought this was a good addition. Do note that Watch How I Do It does not work for totems. I don't want to explain why, because it's just going to confuse you, but don't take this point. And then we have Polish That Gear. The bottom line is important for me. Gain 100% of evasion rating as extra ailment threshold. I do want to note here that a lot of people on Tactician prefer armor. I personally prefer evasion. I think it has a lot to do with your playstyle, so kind of try that out. But just so you know, Stay Light, Use Cover makes it so you can use a full armor setup. This will not be discussed in this video, but that setup uses stuff like Glancing Blows and Iron Reflexes and goes full armor. Needs armor also counts towards elemental damage and whatnot. In this build, we will be fully focusing on evasion gear and deflection rating. Just because I went Tactician doesn't mean you have to though. Ascendancies in PoE2 are not that powerful and not that distinct. All of them have kind of like a little bit of a kit, but you can go Witch Hunter, you can go Gemling. Very strong, I think, would also be the Titan, because a lot of your small nodes are quite strong, and Hulking Form enables that quite a bit. Warbringer, the Answered Call notable, apparently now got fixed, so you have your spirits back. Also a nice chance there, or yeah, just go for the meta and Deadeye. As for gear, all your damage comes from your crossbow. This is not one of those where you're gonna have added damage from somewhere else. No, everything revolves around your crossbow. If your crossbow sucks, you do no damage. It's as easy as that. Even on a skill like Mortar Cannon and Explosive Grenade that has crazy innate damage with like 1,300% damage effectiveness, well, if there's nothing to multiply that off of, then you're screwed. You can either craft your own or use equipment filters with physical DPS or other forms of DPS. For example, a good starting crossbow would probably be around about 400 to 500. You want to make sure that it has grenade, fire, and additional arrow on its implicit though, so do search for that. Boom, search. And yeah, you can already see they started like 1 Exalt. I guess at this point they're already a lot easier to get. But if you go to like, let's say for example, 600, now we're getting a little bit more endgame. We're at 40x plus. If you want the +1 maximum number of summoned ballista totems, you can either craft it yourself. In my update video 3, I think I go over how to craft these. So I'll link that down below in the description. I would highly recommend that. I go through it step by step. I crafted this one myself. Or you simply buy one. At this point, a ton of people are like profit crafting, so there's, I don't know, hundreds out there. Note that we do not scale crit, and that is mostly because of the area not having a lot of support for it. You might think, oh, there's a crit note here, right, with a little bit here. And, well, There's also the Ballista Wheel, gives you a little bit of crit, but it just doesn't pan out. You're going to be like 20-30% crit. It's going to be super inconsistent and barely a damage increase over just taking increased damage. The helmet, I already explained at the start, very strong. Before that, just go for as high evasion as you possibly can, but this helmet will almost double your damage. So get it as soon as possible. It should be your first chase item next to the crossbow. On the ring, rarity, if you want to farm in this game, is a absolute crazy stat. It will basically snowball you. If you think, oh, I can buy that later, with what currency? Well, you gotta invest into rarity at one point. And this build has a ton of rares, as you will see. So you have a lot of flexibility to get it, so get it. Other than resistances, life rolls are vital. We don't really scale strength. We don't scale energy shield. And while evasion will make it so we almost never get hit, if we get hit, we don't want that hit to get us to 0. Once again, the amulet should be replaced once you have a +1 on your crossbow, but you need to have a really good amulet. So it has to be like +3 to projectile skills, and then life, maybe something like mana regen or resistances, and then put other stuff somewhere else. This would have been my next upgrade. For annoyance, I would go for bestial skin if you have a really good high evasion body armor. You don't want to get too much life there because it's also in the prefix. You just want to get as much evasion here as possible. And then bestial skin is extremely strong. Another very strong defensive one is pin their motivation, 20% increased pin duration, which is a super premium stat. You can also path up here if you want to, but it is a lot better to just pick it right here. For offensive annoyant, I would probably go for Crushing Verdict. For charms, the only expensive one I have is Fall of the Axe. This one activates when you would get slowed, and it makes you unaffected by slows for a little bit. Very good against Chilled Ground, Temporal Chains. It also gives you Onslaught for a little bit. This one is expensive. I would buy this one very late. Otherwise, just go for a normal anti-slow one. Normal anti-stun, and a little bit of rarity in there. As for the passive tree, we take as much increased damage as we possibly can. We're not a crit build, so you can't really overdo it. Make sure that you look at the weapon swap section so you know what the hell is going on. We take the surrounded nodes. Now, if you do not have the helmet yet, for the surrounded nodes, I would highly recommend to maybe path to some of these totem clusters. The melee totems stuff doesn't work anymore. They removed this one, but there's also another totem cluster up here. You can also go a little bit more into totem defense. And other than that, yeah, just grab all the increased damage you can get. Maybe Exploit, maybe Catalysis, maybe Maiming Strike. As for leveling, I would highly recommend ZiggyD's Grenade leveling over on Max Roll. I'll link it down below in the description. I did level it a little bit differently, and if I get it out in time, I will also link it down in the description. Otherwise, it will be linked there later. Until level 41, the world is your oyster. At level 41, though, is where you should divert, because that's where Mortar Cannon comes in. And that is where everything in this video applies. If you come in with leveling gear, even better, then you can just already use some of the uniques. Some of them, like the amulet that gives you +1, is very low level, so that will give you a huge power spike. And otherwise, well, just take it as you go. I league started with this on day 1, day 2, day 3. It was through and through an absolutely insane experience. Or better said, if you're not completely stomping everything, you're probably doing something wrong somewhere. Frequently asked questions. My totems are dying. What do I do? Level up your Mortar Cannon. So you will see right here down below, totems gain 75% to all resistances and 35 to chaos res. Now, this is how it comes out of the gate. This is a level 11 fresh Mortar Cannon at level 41. No resistances whatsoever. Now think about the difference between you going into a map with no resistances and 75 resistances. Yes, you take 4 times the damage, and the same is true for your totems. They come with a little bit of inbuilt resistances, but it's still insane. So let's say I have this level 11 right here, and I want to upgrade it to a level 13. You will see if you hover over that the totem gains 5 resistances. But the higher you go, the crazier the scaling gets. Let's, for example, say we upgrade it to a level 18. All of a sudden, you'll see 5 to 55 and 0 to 25. This is why at the start, I wasn't really sure what the totem actually gains per level because it wasn't damage or anything like that. So it's weird. It does also intrinsically scale its life. So you're also getting another defensive layer. So TLDR, this is by far the most important one to get to level 20 once you have the money. Also make sure that your weapon passives are allocated correctly. You should have this totem life right here and the physical damage reduction right here. And if you want to go even further, you can also pick up this one. And yeah, totems are dying in this game, man. The end game is rough. Abysses are rough. You have to position them correctly. If you put them in the middle of an abyss and it taunts all the enemies and it instantly dies, then you know that's probably not the way. So yes, going into endgame, it gets harder and harder. That is normal for totems, unfortunately. Now, you're dying. What do? I had to look at a lot of POBs with people not understanding how gear works in this game. So body armor, first and foremost, is so important. This game is so focused around body armor, especially since we anoint the bestial skin, which doubles your body armor's evasion. This gets multiplied by 2, and if you look at, for example, your helmet, if you have a constricting command, you lose a lot of evasion, but you will get a ton of percentage, right? Like there's percentage everywhere right here. Percentage up here, percentage, and percentage. But the flat is missing, right? You need to multiply something. So all of that doesn't do anything. Your gloves also don't have any. So your boots and your body armor will do a ton of heavy lifting. And the difference between my body armor being on and not being on, 72 evasion, 38, literally doubles it. So while yes, this build has impressive damage, that means you should also invest into defenses, because if you die, you can't level up, you can't get to like level 94 and fill in all those juicy points. Also make sure that in combat, you're on your explosive arrow weapon set, because that's where a lot of your defensive juice is coming from. While I'm in totem mode, I only have 64, 63, and while I'm here, I have 73. Also quite important, my crossbow is not reloading. What's up? The TLDR is, I don't know. There are some bugs this patch. This is why I'm using Rathas. And if you're using Rathas and you can't click it, that's because you ran out of ammo and you forgot to dodge roll. And that can also happen. It is an annoyance. I got used to it and it's pretty nice now. But they fixed one of the bugs. There's still a few ones around and you can't tell me otherwise. I'm sorry, I'm not getting gaslit. I'm using this support until they can fix their game. I don't like totems. I understand. It is delayed damage. It's one of the downsides of the build. And in PoE2, you don't have phasing, so you can't walk through enemies. So it's kind of, it's not similar to minions. It's definitely way faster than minions. But still, if you want to just blast and you just want to move and hold down one button, well, there it is. I would also highly recommend doing WASD. It will make your experience a ton better with totems, because you can very freely place down totems. You can just, I don't know, shoot way, like, it's just better. Now, you might ask, Pal, if you had to summarize your first week's experience, what are the pros and cons of the build? What would you say? Pros, absurd damage right from the get-go. Like I said, I don't even know what most of the new bosses do. I will now have to re-explore it if I level a new character. Just ridiculous. The pin makes it so enemies just don't move. Bosses don't move. They just get completely decimated. The AoE clear, same thing. At the start, when you're not going with like 100 movement speed, the damage delay doesn't really matter because you're not that fast anyways. Everything just blows up. It's glorious. It's a great league starter for all of these reasons. You need like nothing. I had my day 1 crossbow still on day 3 when I was going into like Delhi tier 15 maps. Stupid. But delayed damage will come in later. And this has to do with the fact that in endgame, once you have a ton of gear, what do you really want? More and more damage only gets you so far. At some point, you want a build that is immediate, that can take advantage of on-kill effects, like for example, haste is fast and has no delays, right? And you just want to go. So if you're investing like hundreds and hundreds of divines and you're an absolute zoomer, then the totem playstyle is gonna simply just hold you back. And that is a problem. And delayed damage is an issue because unlike in PoE1, you can't choose your layouts. So indoor layouts are a little bit annoying, right? If there's very narrow, it's kind of like minion builds. If it's indoors, it's just a little, that is definitely annoying. So it doesn't scale well into end game because of the ballista playstyle. And it has pretty rough performance, I will say. If you're not into skill spammy stuff, then yeah, take it or leave it, try it out. If it doesn't work, it is what it is. I can quickly hover over my settings if you want to. This is what I'm currently using. No idea if this is optimal. but it kind of worked for me. So yeah, all in all, great starter build, was an absolute blast, got me through basically all the bosses that I wanted to kill, and now we're on to new things, and I'm very happy that I tried out Mortar Cannon. I was very surprised. I thought the way they would balance it would just be like a support totem, maybe for single target, but they gave it a ton of damage. Only the 50% less damage, and you can plop down like 4 of them. Like, oh boy. And I hope they can improve the performance a little bit. That was probably my most disappointing thing about the whole journey, because I had even spammier things planned. But at some point, I also had to min-max around performance. And yeah, the patch also wasn't great with performance. So even other builds that weren't as spammy had problems. So that kind of made everything a little bit worse. But other than that, highly recommend the build. Once again, Maxroll will also be out. Maybe not at the point where this video will be out, although I will be trying to get it out ASAP. Hope you guys have a good one. Really enjoying PoE2 right now. We'll be playing quite a bit more. At least one more build, probably more though. Absolutely loving where this is going. Loving Abyss. Give this build a shot, or maybe you just learned a little bit more about the game. Join the stream on twitch.tv/Palsteron if you have any questions. And with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.